The next part here is in the verse number 2. خَلَقَ الْإِنسَانَ مِنْ عَلَقٍ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, has created man from a clot. Has created man from a clot. خَلَقَ الْإِنسَانَ مِنْ عَلَقٍ. That Allah created man from a clot. Alright, so looking at this a little bit, we have some issues to deal with, and we have some doctors in the building. If you're a doctor, you can participate with this, and it will be a healthy exercise. First is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala khalaq, bismi rabbika alladhi khalaq, that Allah is the one that created. And here is a general creation, meaning that Allah created every single thing. Every atom, every neutron, every proton, everything that's smaller than that even. Everything in existence was created by Allah Azza wa Jal. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, خَلَقَ الْإِنسَانَ مِنْ عَلَقٍ. He created mankind. Here, why would Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala now say created mankind? Why do you think? Why would He say mankind? Why would He not say created the seas, created the skies, created the trees from wood or from whatever? Mankind is different than anything else. That's true. But trees are different than anything else. Fish are different than anything else. The Quran is for people. Good. And that's a good point. What else? The highest form of His creation. That's getting very close to the point in that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Look, this is the beauty of the message of Islam. And the wisdom. We have something for us. Power to make choices? You mean human beings to make choices? That is a correct statement you've made there, but perhaps in another verse, yes?
He has a purpose for mankind.
Has a purpose for mankind. Right here, what we got earlier, that the human being is the highest form of his creation, or the most advanced, I guess you could say, with an intellect, is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this verse is actually honoring mankind. He's honoring human beings. And of course, this message, as you said, is addressing mankind. So when you want to address someone and you want to get your point across and you want to win them over, what do? You build them up. Right? You shower them with compliments. If you want to get your point across, you don't degrade them and humiliate them and belittle them and then say, listen to what I'm saying. Right? Jazakallah khair. You don't say, you know what, you are the most idiotic, stupid person I've ever seen. By the way, you should follow what I'm saying and listen to me. Right? It doesn't work that way. Right? You have to compliment. You have to put them in a level that they feel like, oh, because you're going to ask them to change. You're going to require them to change their life. And so that's already hard for the human being to do, is to make a drastic change from one way of life, which is going south, to one way of life, which is going north. 180 degrees that He's going to tell these people to change their life. From worshipping idols and lewdness and rudeness and crudeness and evil and to the end. The list goes on and on. As I said before, Mecca at that time was like probably Las Vegas or worse than that. In everything that they did was just halal. Khali wali. Right? Just everything's good. Everything's free game. So here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is honoring the human being by saying, خَلَقَ الْإِنسَانَ مِنْ عَلَقٍ. And this is something that you can find, this type of style of the revelation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, for example, the angels, al-malaika, and then afterwards He mentions al-ruh. Al-malaika wal-ruh. They're from the same species. Al-ruh is who? Jibreel alayhi salam. Al-ruh is Jibreel. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, Al-malaika, the angels, wal-ruh, Jibreel. Why did He do that? To honor Jibreel alayhi salam from the rest of the angels. Like here, خَلَقَ الْإِنسَانِ, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala honored the human being out of the rest of His creation. He drew our attention and showed some honor to us. Then He says, مِنْ عَلَقٍ. Now this is for the doctors. And we need Dr. Arif here to wake up from his slumber. Because we need your expertise. After that, you can go back if you want. If you could go back down and you could tell us how beautiful it was. Are you dreaming about your homeland or dreaming about South Jersey? Okay, if you made safar, then you can combine your salah and you can break your fast. Anyway, listen. خَلَقَ الْإِنسَانَ مِنْ عَلَقٍ. He created mankind from a clot. Asking you as a doctor, and if there are any other doctors, in case he needs your help, what is the first stage of creation, the human being? Is it the clot, or is there something that comes before that? Okay? Okay, good. So the creation of the human being begins at, I guess you would call it conception. Is that right? The right term? Where as you know all the details of that, for the elders here that are married and for the younger ones, so you'll learn it later. I'm not going to explain it to you. This is not the class for that. Anyway, there are some steps that happen before the alaq, before the clot. The alaq, it's already there. It's already begun. The life of the human being in the womb of the mother has already been conceived, and it's now developing. So here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, خَلَقَ الْإِنسَانَ مِنْ عَلَقٍ, that He created man from an alaq. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is leaving some steps out. Why do you think that is? He left some steps out from the very beginning. Here. Because this was considered to be common knowledge amongst the Arab at the time. That this was medicine that was common knowledge. That those people during that time, they knew that the human being inside of the womb was an alaq. Because from time to time there would be a miscarriage. And they would see what would be produced or what would come from that. That it wasn't a full human being, but it was like a clot. Right? Thick coagulated blood when the woman would miscarry. So they identified this as being what the human being started as. And so for this reason, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose the word alaq instead of saying something before that, like an embryo or whatever it may be you want to call it. Alaq, because they recognized this as true and they could not argue. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from the very beginning of the revelation is giving them fact upon fact that they themselves cannot dispute. They cannot argue with the truth of this message. Ar-Rabb, the Creator, alladhi khalaq, then He honored them, khalaq al-insan, boasting them and putting them up. And then He says, min alaq, so now they can't say, no, that's not right. There's a mistake, there's a flaw. No. 100% they would accept everything that was said up until this point. So this is from some of the wisdom that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala used in these words, and selecting these words to send down. Another thing after that was, we look at